The dimly lit room was filled with the pungent aroma of expensive and stale drinks, as if the very air itself was heavy with the weight of unspoken. A single bare light bulb dangled from the ceiling, casting grotesque shadows across the worn-out leather sofa where he sat. His arms crossed over his chest, his face contorted into an unyielding scowl. His name was Jungkook, and he was the mafia boss of the most powerful mafia family in Seoul City. But tonight, his entire world had come crashing down around him. His most important deal had just been cancelled, and he was ready to tear the city apart with his bare hands in a fit of rage. The door to the room swung open, and his wife, Vian, cautiously stepped inside. She was dressed in a simple yet elegant black dress that hugged her in all the right places, her long brown hair flowing down her back like a waterfall. She closed the door behind her and walked over to where he sat, her heart racing with fear and uncertainty. "Love, I know you must be upset," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "But we've been through wars before, remember? We can get through this together." Her words hung in the air, seeming to only serve to enrage him further. Jungkook turned his glare toward her, the fire in his eyes burning bright. "Together?" he growled. "You think this is my fault, Vian? Do you think I wanted this to happen?" He slammed his fist onto the table, sending glasses and ashtrays clattering to the floor.
No, this is all their fault," he shouted, pointing an finger at an unseen enemy. "They will pay for what they've done."
Vian took a step back, her eyes widening in fear as she saw the fury building in her husband's eyes. She knew there was only one way to calm him down, and that was to use the power that she possessed over him. Slowly, she walked around the table and stood in front of him, meeting his furious gaze head-on. "You know, I'm right here for you, Jungkook," she said softly, her voice a soothing balm to his raging mind. "And I know that together we can make this right." Her hand reached up, tracing the line of his jaw, before settling on his shoulder. "Let me help you." At her, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm that raged within him. He knew she was right. He didn't want to hurt her. He wanted to protect her, to keep her safe from the of their world. But he was so angry, so full of rage. It was hard to think straight. Slowly, he opened his eyes and looked down at her. She was beautiful even when she was worried. Her eyes were filled with love and determination. And it was those eyes that always made him feel safe. "Okay," he finally whispered. "Okay, you're right. We'll get through this together. Wine smiled up at him, relief flooding through her. I love you, Jungkook, she said, leaning in too. And I know we can make everything right again. She squeezed his shoulder gently before stepping back, giving him some space. Now, why don't you tell me what happened? Who cancelled the deal? He took a deep breath and began to explain, his voice growing more controlled with each word. As he spoke, she listened intently, nodding her head in understanding. When he finished, she reached out to take his hand, squeezing it reassuringly. We'll figure this out, Jungkook, she promised. We always do. The tension began to ease from his shoulders as he felt the warmth of her hand in his. You really think so? He asked, a note of hope creeping into his voice. Because I don't know what I'd do without you, Ryan. You're my rock. You know that? She smiled at him, her eyes shining with love. I'm here for you always. No matter what happens, I'll always be your rock, your partner, and together we can face anything. Together they stood, their hands clasped tightly, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The door to the room swung open again, and one of Jungkook's most trusted right-hand men stepped inside. Boss, we've got a lead on the ones who cancelled the deal. They're hiding out in a warehouse on the docks. Jungkook and Ryan exchanged a look, both knowing what this meant. Let's go take care of them, Jungkook said, his voice hardened once more. And make sure they never cross us again. Ryan squeezed his hand one last time before nodding in agreement. Side by side, they walked out of the room, ready to face the darkness together. The warehouse was dark and the smell of thick in the air. Jungkook's men fanned out as they made their way through the shadows. Jungkook and Ryan followed closely behind, their steps silent and as they rounded a corner, they came upon a group of men huddled around a table, arguing heatedly. Jungkook signaled to his men, and they sprang into action, opening. The room erupted in chaos as men screamed. Ryan stayed close to Jungkook's side, her hand into the small of his back, guiding him through the It's done, he said, his voice. They won't be bothering us again. She nodded, her eyes taking in the scattered around the room. We'll need to clean up this mess, she said, her voice steady despite the horror before them. As they made their way back through the warehouse, Jungkook couldn't help but feel a sense of relief wash over him. It was a business they were in, but he knew he could trust YN to have his back. She was his partner in every sense of the word, and together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they emerged from the warehouse, blinking in the harsh light of day, Jungkook reached out to take her hand. "You did well, my love," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I don't know what I'd do without you." She smiled up at him, her eyes shining with love and admiration. "I'm here for you, Jungkook," she replied simply. "Always." Together they walked back to their car, their strides purposeful and sure.
The world might be a dark and place, but as long as they had each other, they could face anything.
Together, they would build their empire, and nothing would stand in their way.